Hey everybody, on today's episode we're going to be looking at programming drums. If we consider the creative process of writing music, programming drums is one of the most important steps because that's where you experiment with the beats and craft them, and where you build the foundation of a song. I also want to walk through some basic concepts and ideas of how you can actually come up with the right drum parts for your music. To start it off, we're gonna look at some simple, straightforward rock beats. After that, we're gonna look at some syncopated drum beats. And then we're gonna look at some odd time drum beats as well. It's also worth mentioning that we need something to trigger these sounds. It can be an E-drum kit, a MIDI keyboard, or just simply the mouse. It's up to you how you feel most comfortable. Alrighty. My main DAW of choice is Studio One, and I'm gonna be using Getco drums. As you can see, this is how it looks like. That's where you can route the separate channels to the mixer tracks, and all of these mixer tracks have been sent to a drums bus, which then goes onto the master. So this is the Studio One drum editor. I've got my drum map right here, starting with kick, snare, toms, heads, cymbals. And on the further left you can see the default velocity as well. It's pretty straightforward. Now we're going to start to program a very simple basic rock beat pattern. This means the kick is on 1 and 3, the snare is on 2 and 4, and the hi-hat is in an 8th notes pattern. Alright, we're going to select the paint tool, and with this we can click the notes in and out. Everything is displayed in the 16th note subdivisions on the grid. There we have our basic interplay between kick and snare. Next we're going to get the closed hi-hats, and we put it in right into the 16th note subdivisions. We can adjust the velocities on the further left. This is going to give you a slightly more realistic sound and trigger different dynamics of the samples of the drum library. Another thing you can do is go into the humanize function, and what it does, it's going to place notes slightly off grid and randomize the velocities as well. We just created a really straightforward drum beat, and it couldn't be simpler than that, just to be able to adjust each individual hit in terms of velocity, character, and where they're placed on the grid. From there, I want to show you some more intense drum programming. We're gonna start by listening to some pre-recorded guitars, and then we're gonna go into the drum map and develop the drum beat from the kick and the snare. Let's have a listen through. Personally, I'm focusing on a constant pulse. And this is going to determine the interplay between the kick and snare drum. We also need to know what kind of groove is best to go with this riff, so we can bop our head to really make it rock. Just changing the kick drum and snare drum placements is gonna drastically alter the whole perceived feeling of the riff. So that's where we're gonna start. Okay, we start with the kick and snare placements. I'm going to actually fast forward the process a little bit. Here we go. Now we have the kicks and snares all on the grid. Next, I've got my pedal head going on here with 8 notes. I'm going to copy and paste them. And I've got a china and quarter notes. Gonna copy and paste them as well. Now I really want to enhance the beat with some ghost notes here and there. Just experimenting and hearing what sounds the best. Sounds good. I really like the soft accents in between. You're not really hearing it, it's just more kind of filling in the gaps. It's kind of a real drum with play. Some cymbals to get the accents of the riff, and a fill at the end of the phrase. Now we have to adjust a little bit the velocities, and that's it. The next drum beat I want to show you, it's a syncopated triplet beat, and that's the kind of beat where the kick is following the riff and the snare is keeping the time. You will also notice that this is the kind of relationship the kick and snare have to the guitars. It's pretty consistent, and it's sort of a revolving pattern. So we're gonna listen to the pre-recorded guitars. First, we're going to change the grid into 32nd note triplets, and we also have to select the note length as well into 32nd notes. Next, we're heading over to the paint tool and we place the kick into the triplet note subdivisions, so in a way that it matches the riff. Alright. Now on the second bar, we're going to change the rhythmical pattern of the kick a little bit and place the second snare hit on the backbeat. Well, the third and fourth bar are pretty similar rhythmically, that's why I'm gonna speed it up a little bit and basically copy and paste kick and snare for the last 4 bars. Now we're placing the chinas and we put an extra emphasis on accents like crash snare hits. I've got my pedal head going too. We select the entire beat and randomize the velocity a bit. It will really make the sound more realistic and trigger different samples of the library. I also programmed 2 fills at the end of each phrase. Next, I'm going to place some ghost notes to support the main accents of the beat. They have to be really soft dynamically. And then we're done. The next drum pattern I want to show you is the 5/8 odd time beat, and it's pretty much inspired by Bulgarian folk music. It's pretty common there to have lots of odd time beats like 7/8, 9/8, 11/8, and this time is going to be a little bit more complex because we're going to have a mellotron, a lead violin, guitars and a bass. And I want to touch on how the feels that we have for the beats, the interplay between kick and snare, can really change the melody and the context of the music in regards to dynamics. Now, here we've got our basic framework, just kick and snare. From there we're going to add cymbals, ghost notes, different velocities, and we can even change it up a little bit to enhance specific accents of the main melody. So I've programmed the drums already. What the drums do here specifically is that the beat changes after each 8 bars, and we've got a fill at the end of each 7 bars. We have subtle accents on the ghost notes and we have some syncopation as well. Another way to approach the drums is you can cut the MIDI file into specific parts where you know the instrumentals are going to change rhythmically or dynamically, and you start building it up from there. So I'm going to press play and we can follow along. What this drum beat does, it almost allows us to listen to the solo section in its entirety and how it changes and makes this repetitive chord progression work. It really shows us how a drum beat can affect the overall tone, character and context of the music. It's just basically observing and interpreting what's already in front of us in a musical form, and then knowing the program well enough to get everything that's inside our head your creativity into the software. That's it for now, guys. I really hope I could help some of you who are just starting out programming drums with this brief introduction in this video. If you've got any types of comments, please write them down in the comment section below. I love reading them. And I hope you have a good drum programming session, and talk to you soon. Cheers!